we're just going to move right along. To discuss cracking the international cannabis logistics chain code, the CEM of Cannabilog, let's hear it for Yoram Eshel.
Hi, guys. So we need some energy around here. It's late after lunch. So who is here from Canada? Who is here from Germany? Yeah. Who is here from Portugal? And who is here from Australia? They're sleeping now.
One guy.
Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying. What we want to do today, what I want to do today, is actually give you a lot of practical advice, a lot of practical things that you have to think about when you want to do international trade of cannabis, import and export cannabis around the world. This is what Cannabilog is doing, and this is what I want to share with you, what we learned, and we learned a lot during 2013, and what you should expect going forward in the coming years. Yes, I'm talking about logistics. Logistics is sometimes something that you think it's like moving by itself, right? But it's not. So we will learn a little bit about what you should do, what you should be aware about, and how actually all those presentation before, when we talked about all these opportunities, how we actually execute that. So this is my presentation. Myself, 14 years I was the head of global supply chain and logistics for Teva. I'm coming from the pharma industry. I know the industry in and out, coming with all the experience, the knowledge, the understanding of quality, pharmaceuticals, markets, 85 production sites. Then I retired from Teva and decided to come to this amazing industry, the cannabis industry, and actually to bring all my knowledge from the pharma into the medical cannabis. So this is why I made all those connections, and this is why I'm here today to share with you. One slide about the company, Cannabilog. We already moved more than 80,000 kilos of cannabis in the last 2-3 years from many countries to many countries. I'll share with you. A lot of operation, a lot of movement. And what 98% of what we do is moving cannabis products from one country to the other. We are a little bit in the distribution of cannabis, but mainly in the international trade. And this is what I would like to share with you today. So this is the agenda. I'm not going to walk it step by step. You will see that I'll talk about all those points during my presentation. So what's new? I was here last year, and I said, what's new this year? So first of all, we see that there are new regulations. If you don't know, you know Germany. We will talk all day about Germany, but also Greece. There is a big reform in Israel, big change. The market is going to grow dramatically. And I just want to encourage you to find out what are the opportunities out there. There's a big number of new EU GMP facilities in Portugal, in Canada, in other places. So if you're looking for tolling, if you want to sell your products in Europe, there are more and more opportunities doing that. Same thing about Australia. Sorry. Industry challenges, yeah? We see what's going on with big companies, both in Canada, in Israel, in other places. Companies are disappearing. Big companies that made a lot of investment are not there in the market anymore. So be aware of those changes. New markets? Really? How many markets, real markets of cannabis, medical cannabis products, there are in the world? Who think 2? 3? 4? 5? Raise your hand who thinks 5. About 5, guys. That's it. Medical cannabis markets as such, 5 markets. 6 maybe. So a lot of stories, a lot of, people think that a lot of countries are joining the party. There's not a lot of markets. Markets, I mean, doctors write prescriptions, you go to a pharmacy and you get your product. Not a lot of markets. So everybody wants to sell to Germany, to Australia, to the UK, to Switzerland, to Israel. That's it. Okay? Not more, or not a lot more than that. And of course, new import-export opportunities in Thailand. By the way, not just Thailand. There's a lot of stories about many countries. You will hear that there are imports from Thailand to Thailand or export out of Thailand. The answer is no. There's no clear regulations over there. There's a lot of gray issues. So be aware to that. There's a lot of stories. But when it comes to execution, make sure that you do understand the regulations. So logistics. When you talk about logistics, you have to remember these 5 pillars. One is the regulatory compliance. Unfortunately, with cannabis, there's no, or I would say differently, I would say that each country has its own regulations. So whenever you do international trade of cannabis, be aware that the exporting country regulations are not exactly as the importing country regulations, and you have to adhere to both. So regulatory issues are mainly, or probably the main thing that you have to take care of. Security, okay? It's a drug, it's narcotics, it's attracting a lot of attention. Security is an important point. There are some countries that we are not moving even 1 flower or 1 leaf unless we have an armed guard together with the truck. Sometimes it's the regulation, sometimes we're just doing it even if it's not a regulation. So be aware of security. Quality assurance. Guys, it's medicines. It's exactly like pharma. Medical cannabis is exactly like any molecule that you can think about, paracetamol or anything else. It's a medicine. This is why you have to adhere to all those pharmaceutical requirements, GDP, and other GMP regulations. Expertise, yeah. Cannabis, excuse my language, cannabis is not garments from, I don't know, from a country. To ship cannabis, it's a highly regulated issue, and if you ship it and you don't do it right, you can kiss it goodbye. And I'll say it several times. If you arrive to the country of destination and you cannot clear it, no way back. It's going to be destroyed, and you will have to pay for it. So it's not a regular thing that you just send it DHL or FedEx or whatever, and it's there. It's not. And the last thing is global. I think the lecturer before me said, act local, think global. If you really want to be there, if you really want to do international trade, think global. What we had in 2013, these were the main lanes. I told you before, there are not that many markets. So I think that the strongest exporting country is Canada, you know that. Then we saw a lot of movements from South Africa, either to EU, UK, and Australia, Portugal, Uruguay, and a lot of intra-Europe movements of medical cannabis within Europe, from Portugal to Germany, to Switzerland, to others. Each one of those lanes required a completely different logistic solution. And we will talk about that in a while. You don't need the numbers. There's a lot of charts that we saw today, but you can see the potential. Australia, look at it. They're going to grow dramatically. So again, numbers are numbers. I just want to show you the trend that we are going to face more and more and more sales in different markets, which will require logistic solution. At the end of the day, you have to move it. You have to pick it up in the site, and you have to bring it to the market. Whether you like it or not, you have to move it. And you have to move it right, because if it's not going to help nobody. Let's talk 2 slides about regulations. Okay, I could have bring here dozens of charts. Okay, look at Google, say cannabis legal something, you will get a lot of charts. This is for the legal status of cannabis, recreation. This is medical. This is another map. Just name it. The reason I'm putting it here is because I want you to make sure that you understand that regulations are moving, are changing every week. Every week we see some changes in regulations, more countries, more changes in the regulations. Last year it was Australia, this year it's Germany, Greece, Israel. It's moving target all the time. So make sure that you don't stick with one map, but you understand the changes that we see almost every week. Europe, really? One of the previous presentations were when someone showed a list of 12 countries in Europe, Malta, Portugal, Germany, UK, who understand the regulatory environment in Europe? Please raise your hand. Legal, not legal, half legal, decriminalized, criminalized. Another map of Europe, right? Is it right? Or maybe this one is right? Same thing. It's confusing, not like in the pharma world. In the pharma world, you come to Europe, there's one rule. With cannabis, changing all the time. CBD, yes or not? THC, yes or not? Above 0.2, above 0.3, whatever, okay? So Europe is actually different countries in Europe, and each one of them is different than the others. So make sure that you do understand that what you know today is not necessarily what will be right next week or next month or whatever. So the regulatory maze in Europe is amazing. It's amazing, I can say it this way. Okay, so again, this is the regulatory. To make it even nicer, you know that according to the UN regulations, if a country wants to legalize or to actually to approve import or export or consumption of cannabis, they have to create a local agency. Each country has to create a local agency to deal with the cannabis licensing. This is the UN rules. So when you deal with a shipment, let's say from Portugal to Germany, so you have to adhere to the Portuguese inframed rules, but you also have to adhere to the BFARM rules. Not the same. And you have to have license, import license from BFARM, and you have to have export license from Inframed or any other agency in the world. Good luck. It takes time. Sometimes they delay the decision, you don't understand why. Sometimes it will take you a week to get an import permit, sometimes it will take you 3 weeks to get it, and sometimes 6 weeks to get it. Health Canada, okay? Just to name a few. So remember, if you want to move even one leaf of cannabis, you have to deal with the local, the country agency. And there are many of them with different rules, with different timelines, with different service levels. Sometimes it's even not fun, okay? But they are setting the rules, and we have to understand that. What is cannabis products, okay? So we are dealing with a variety of products. Let's start with genetics. Genetics can be seeds, can be tissue cultures, can be cuttings. From a logistic point of view, to move cuttings, and we moved already dozens of thousands of cuttings, okay, cuttings, right? Clones. So I guess you know that in most countries in the world, they will not accept rooted clones. They will accept just unrooted clones. So what is an unrooted clone? You cut it, and if it will not meet water in 3-4 days, it's dead. There's no roots. So all you have is 3-4 days to bring it from the cultivation site to somewhere, a laboratory or a site that can put them in the water. So logistically, you have to control from the cutting up to the delivery with a very tight timeline. 4 days, it's dead. By the way, we have 100% success with that. Dried flowers, APIs, what I call APIs and you will call extracts. Completely different logistic solutions. Completely different way to deal with that. Packed, finished, semi-finished cannabis products, herbal medicine, we heard a lot about it, CBD products. Do they need temperature control? Do they need any kind of control? Good questions, because some countries will say yes, some countries will say no. And smokable products, okay, same thing. So what we really need to know from the quality point of view. So remember, medical cannabis is a medicine. The problem, or the first problem you have to think about, it's a plant-based medicine. So it's not the tablet that you go to the pharmacy and buy it, although there are tablets for cannabis. But the idea that if you're moving flowers, it's an agricultural product. It's like moving tomatoes, but you don't have medicine tomatoes. This is medicine. So anywhere you go, you have to adhere both to the pharmaceutical side and also to the agricultural side. And both authorities will be involved. I'm talking flowers, oils is a little bit different. So it's a plant-based medicine which require much more attention than just shipping either pharmaceuticals or tomatoes. Second issue, of course, you have to adhere to the pharma standard, quality management, GDP, you know, the whole thing. Maintaining the product integrity, okay, safety, security, and of course, temperature control, okay? If you put a data logger on the origin and the guy on the other side have to read it, and there is a temperature excursion, no way you can take it to the market unless you go through certain procedures. So you have to make sure that it's a medicine. You have to make sure how to maintain the temperature along the supply chain. GMP, GDP, applicable regulations, sometimes it's country specifics. Sometimes it's general, sometimes it's country specifics that you have to understand. Packages. I just brought you here a picture of a pallet, a nice pallet covered with thermal covers. It's not the only solution. There's different solutions how you maintain temperature, okay? This pallet goes or travels within a temperature control truck, what we call TCV, okay, temperature control truck, with a thermal protection. There are a lot of types of that, just to show you that it has to be packaged properly. And you have to put the data logger under the thermal cover and not on top of the thermal cover. Because you put it on top of the thermal covers, you measure the outside temperature. You don't measure the inside or the product temperature. This is why it's very, very important to have a very strict packaging protocol and to understand how you protect those products along the supply chain. And this pallet can travel 10,000 miles. Okay, how you protect it, how you make sure that it's working properly. And the last thing, it's a good advice for you. When you are selling your products to a customer on the other side, make sure that you understand their acceptance criteria, not yours. Their acceptance criteria, whether laboratory tests, whether other tests, because you have to adhere to their acceptance or rejection criteria. If you don't know it in advance and you don't bring the right COVAs or the right documents, they cannot clear it in their market. So in your market, it might be okay. But in their market, it's not going to work. This is why make sure that when you negotiate a deal, you understand those criteria and you make sure that you can adhere to that. I saw too many cases where it was not aligned. And it creates a lot of issues. So sometimes it's not about the price, it's not about the quality, it's not about the size of the flowers or whatever. Sometimes it's just laboratory tests, heavy metals or whatever the case is. This is a very schematic chart, how we ship cannabis. By the way, how we ship medical products anyhow. We pick it with a temperature control truck. We take it to the airline. We take it to the airport. We have special measures at the airport. We use special service with the airlines. And on and on and on. Now you want to talk about on-time delivery? You have to plan it very, very carefully. And I'll talk about it a bit later. Somehow, I don't know why, a lot of cases in this industry is like you are waiting 5 days before the expiry of the permit and then you ship. Why? Why cannot do it a month before? Why to be under pressure? And now you can understand that sometimes there will be delays, there will be issues, customs or whatever, and then you are very close to the expiry of your license. So it takes time. And if you want to meet a deadline, you have to plan it carefully. Security. So you see there are special vehicles to maintain security. I told you already that in some cases, some countries were not moving it without an armed guard, whether in the truck or following the truck. Of course, GPS, geofencing, all those solutions. But make sure that you have a good insurance coverage, because sometimes things may happen. And by the way, most of the things we didn't have even one case of theft. Most of it is damages or temperature excursion or things like that. So make sure that your insurance covers that. We provide special insurance policy for cannabis. Make sure that you have such. It's a little bit more than just regular pharmaceuticals, but you better have it. Operation challenges. Well, I can talk about until the evening. So first of all, exportation procedures, okay? Some countries, like for instance Canada, you have to be registered as an exporter. And we found cases where we already collected the goods, and the guy was not registered as an exporter. By the way, it's 2 minutes on the computer, but you have to do it once. Or you have to register yourself with the Ministry of Agriculture Authority, local. Sorry? I think it's the CBS. Exactly. So, you know, exportation should be simple, but sometimes the procedures are heavy. Sometimes they want to examine it, sometimes they want to test it. By the way, if it's within the EU, it's relatively easy. But most of it, if it's coming from Canada, Australia, a lot of issues. Custom clearance process, okay? Be aware that in most cases, not always, customs may open your, not your boxes, but your pallets to take a look. Physical examination, which may cause delays. Usually not damages, although we saw that. But, you know, highly regulated. Documents and documents and documents, okay? It's all about documentation. Licenses, permits, phytosanitary certificates, COVs, all kinds of declarations. If you don't have the right documentation, it will be stuck. So you better have it. And by the way, in Cannabilog, our practice is we're not picking up even not one flower before we get all the documents and we make sure that we can clear it on the other side. I'm just encouraging you to take the same approach because there's no use to ship it if you cannot clear it. So make sure that you can clear it before even you pick it up and take it to the airport or whatever. Other authorities, okay, it's not just customs. In Israel, if you want to clear a cannabis shipment, you have to go through 3 agencies: Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture, and Customs. Okay? Germany is a little bit different. Canada is, well, not import to Canada, but a bit different. So anyway, other agencies that you have to go through. Physical examination, already spoke about it. Strict, full end-to-end control. In pharma, and I'm saying it, it's a medical product. So the pharma world and the cannabis world requires you as a shipper to make sure that you control the whole chain. You cannot say, yeah, ship it, and that's it. It doesn't work this way. If you have an audit from the authorities, you will have to prove that you know how to control the whole supply chain. There's no stories about that. This is the requirement. So you have to make sure that your logistics service providers, trucking companies, whatever, you can control the whole way through. And we are very much recommending on-time, real-time data loggers so you can track the shipment all the way through. And if there are delays or if there are issues, you can know about it immediately. Something that we developed in the last year is a very, very reliable land transportation within Europe. I brought here an example of a shipment going out from Portugal to Germany by temperature controlled vehicle, GDP certified company, and you can see perfect temperature control. Everything is around 20 degrees, less than 36 hours. Don't try to see where it came from, okay, leave it. Everybody's looking at the map, you know, to see. And secured. Okay, you can see a few pallets in the truck, and those poles are keeping the freight so it will not fall or move or whatever. So, limited, there are not that many companies can do that. So you have to find a very reliable GDP certified provider, pharma grade service, spoke about that, online GPS, you can see at every point where the truck is and what is the temperature inside the truck. Reliability, reasonable cost, responsiveness if you wish, required documents. Remember, when you move in Europe, you cross borders. Now, if you look at this example, they went from Portugal where it's legal, through Spain, which is not legal, France, which is not legal, and then Germany, which is legal. But you know, cross-border within the EU is possible, but you have to have the right documentation, and don't hide it. Don't write pharmaceuticals, write cannabis, it's okay. But as long as you have the import permit and the export permit and your documents are good, you're good. Although you've passed those borders, okay? But you have to have a very reliable provider that can arrange the whole thing, by the way, pre-arranged. It's not that the truck is living and you sit down and pray. No. That's why I said pre-arranged. Air freight. So most of the cannabis goes by air freight, right? So first of all, I just want you to know that there are very limited number of airlines that will carry cannabis. Not every airline will carry it. Just very limited number of airlines. The second thing is high cost. Sorry to say that, the airlines are taking advantage of our shortage, and the cost to ship cannabis is very high, much higher than other things. When you come to an airline with a cannabis shipment, you will always have a delay of 2-3 days before they approve it. Because they have a procedure to approve the cannabis, especially when you're, for instance, shipping with, let's say, Emirates General. I mean, those airlines that are going through the Gulf. So you know, the cannabis is not legal. So they have to approve it in the origin station, they have to approve it in the, what we call transshipment station, and then in the destination. It takes 2-3 days. So before we have this, we call it okay to forward. So before we have this confirmation from the airline, we cannot move it. So remember, it's not that we pick it up and ship it. We have to do some arrangements before we can ship it on, okay? Of course, direct flights are easier, but Australia, right? To Australia are almost no flights, or not direct flights, especially not from Canada and Europe, very limited. So it's an issue. Tarmac time, you know that most of it, whoa.
Goes fast.
So, okay, so be aware of two things. First of all, the transshipment point have to be rearranged. Never, ever, ever touch a US soil with cannabis shipment. They will confiscate it. Don't use American Airlines. I don't mean the American Airlines company. Don't even think about landing in the US with cannabis shipment with THC. Okay, I just want to go with the lesson learned. First of all, packages. Make sure that your packages, first of all, optimal size. If you look here in this pallet, you see that this shipper paid a lot of money for nothing, right? Because the boxes are not completely on the pallet, but you're paying for the air as well. By the way, same thing about this thermal covers, but nonetheless, licenses validity day, I spoke about it. Avoid weekends. Try not to stack on weekends, because then you will pay more storage and you cannot clear it. Try to do it before the weekend or after the weekend, and original documents. That's my last one. Do and doesn't.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it for Yoram Eshel. It's 2:55. It goes fast. That's incredible.
Finish that. Plan your flights carefully. Don't ever ship before you make sure that you can clear it, and don't go through the US.
Don't go through. There you go. Those are the good rules. One more time for Mr. Eshel. I'm sure if you have more questions about the logistics, he will be outside waiting for you. They're at stand 426. Thank you very much. This is the International Cannabis Business Conference, Berlin 2024. Shout out to our title sponsor, Tolman Group. Shout out to all of our other sponsors, and shout out to all of you.